Press record. Got it. All yours, Tracy.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Thank you, David, for that great introduction. I am your Toastmaster of the day, Tracy Kawa. I will briefly introduce myself. I am a second-year Toastmaster, which means I've been involved with Toastmasters for 2 years, down here at my local group in Boca Raton, Florida. And I am excited to announce that I received second place for the International Speech Contest for my area down here in Florida. Okay, I'm going to be honest, I was going for first. However, there's always next year, and we'll see what'll happen. Excuse me for just one moment while I mute some background noise here. Sorry about that. Okay, to get our meeting started, we have all of our roles filled. Our timer today will be Assel, Toastmaster Assel. Our grammarian, thank you so much as a guest for stepping in, Toastmaster, soon to be Toastmaster Janice. Our vote counter is Toastmaster Peggy, and our counter is Toastmaster John. Our general evaluator of the day is Toastmaster Lois, and she will be giving the general overall evaluation once we are complete. Thank you, Roger, for the changes to the schedule and for announcing all of the upcoming meetings and events. Our first speaker tonight is Joy Knudsen. She will be speaking from the Visionary Communication Level 4, Building Skills. Her topic tonight is regarding building a social media presence. Do I need to be present on social media? The time reserved for this speech is 7 minutes. Altogether, our speakers will be speaking for 21 minutes. I believe we can get started. Toastmaster Joy.
Joy. Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. I created my second social media profile in 1997. It was on a dating site. My life situation was that I was a single mother with 2 small kids, or they were not anymore so small. 2 kids, and I worked long days in an environmental organization as a project manager. The kids started having a lot of interests and hobbies and friends of their own, but I didn't have time to go out socializing, and I felt very lonely. I decided to find a new partner, maybe hopefully for the rest of my life. And that's why I created this profile. It was in the early days. This was the first dating site in Denmark. There were 10,000 profiles. 80% of those were men, and they were most of them working in IT industry. And I was active on that website, dating site, 1.5 years, and became expert in internet dating. And luckily, after that 1.5 years, I found a partner, a perfect man whom I'm married to currently. The third profile I created on social media was on Facebook. That was 10 years later after this second experience. And that was because I wanted to keep in touch with my relatives and friends and colleagues and new people I met. And in the beginning, I was very active, but gradually my activity on Facebook reduced to just sending happy birthday and anniversary wishes to my contacts and sometimes liking some posts they uploaded. And this kind of a passive approach has followed with me, even though I have created a lot of other accounts on many social media sites. And typically, for example, I have taken lots of internet courses, online courses on 10 different platforms. And most of those courses have their own communities and own video and file sharing sites. And during the course, you become acquainted with a lot of new people and communicate with them. But after the course, you stop using that. Some of these courses require that you have to use Vimeo or YouTube to upload your coursework. And that's why I also have got several accounts where you share videos and photos. And photo sharing sites also, I probably am active in 4 different ones, because some of my friends have chosen some sharing sites that I haven't been earlier on. And while I was preparing this speech, I actually started feeling that, do I actually need to be present on all these social media sites? The assignment at this level requires that I should be enhancing my presence to promote myself on social media. Therefore, I created this idea that if I need to enhance my presence, maybe I could start using coaching and mentoring skills in some better way. I on blogging sites, an English one, and wrote texts about coaching and mentoring. And then I went to LinkedIn and made these changes to be reflected on LinkedIn. And hopefully, at the next level on this visionary path, I will elaborate more and find out how I can make this coaching mentoring thing happen on internet. And I hope to get help from you others, because I think you are working with something, some of you with something similar. It would save me a lot of time if I wasn't spending so much time on social media websites. Because when I get all these notifications in my email in the morning, most of the time I can discipline myself and I just delete them. But sometimes my eye catches some interesting headline and I click the link and then I go to the site and I read some interesting article. Then I see some other interesting things happening there and start reading. And quickly an hour has gone. And I have learned a lot of things that are nice to know, but that I actually don't need to know. But I'm very good at manipulating myself. And that's why I tell myself that maybe it's useful to store some of this information on my brain and create some new connections. And maybe it's useful for the future. But the main benefit for me being on these social media sites is that since I am an extroverted person, but I'm living a very weird life, having homes on 2 continents and traveling a lot, I have found out that this virtual connection to many of the people I know and even people I don't know very well, it gives me this feeling that I'm part of the world. And when I like other people's inputs or pin them or express in another way that I see you, I hear you while we are here in this virtual world, it makes me feel that I am contributing to some other people's lives and they are contributing to my life and giving me this feeling that I am part of this world. And finally, when I became a member of this club in January, it has been an important addition to my life because it has given me a totally new group of people to communicate with and improve my skills with. I look forward to learning to know you all better. My Toastmaster.
Thank you very much, Joy. Wonderful speech. I would like to announce that Jacinta is here, and she was originally going to be the grammarian. Are we going to hand over the grammarian role back to Jacinta with her interesting word of flumax. Jacinta?
It doesn't matter to me. I think Roger mentioned that Janice was going to be the grammarian, so I'm okay with that. If there was already a word that was already presented earlier, that's fine.
Okay, we will have to flumax next week.
Okay.
Same time, same channel.
All right. Thank you.
Our next speaker, speaker number 2, is Toastmaster Magda van Rooyen. Her speech is from the Engaging Humor Level 1 book, Mastering Fundamentals, Researching, and Presenting. Her title, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner? Guess Who's Coming to Dinner? The time reserved for this speech is 7 minutes. Take it away, Magda.
Thank you, Madam Timer. Just give me a moment to do the introduction for this speech, please. I will tell you when I'm ready because I'm going to share screen. Doing humor path and doing research. That was quite a tough one for me. And I'm really experimenting today. I'm doing something that I've never done before. I've got a reverse order in my speech to do a comparison. And please, if you can give me some feedback on this, that would be really great. I'm getting ready to share my screen, just a moment. Get stuff out of the way and stuff ready. Our timer, I'm ready. Thank you so much. When we organize a dinner, we need to answer some questions such as who and what. After the invites are out, we usually concentrate on the menu. First, you think protein, red or white meat. Our focus is not only on staying alive, but it's pretty much also a bit to impress and to socialize. And then we start to fantasize about the night because we want it to be really, really perfect. On the night, our friends showed up, and the males can be absolutely coiffed, or they can look like rugged mountain men. Come on, Magda. When I compare females over the ages, nothing much changed. A huge cleavage was and still is in. However, a little bit of plumpness today would lead to discussions on a diet. Ooh. On the night, the first thing we do when we open the door is we scan the faces of our guests. This is not only for identity, but also for mood. Even if our guests are in a bad mood, we try our best to be jovial because we know about the struggles of being a human being. And this is imprinted from childhood onwards. We have learned that we can vocalize our mood, and this is happening long before we can talk. And this is another great thing. We also learned a little bit of body language. But this took years. It's only at the age of 25 that our brains are fully formed and we understand our shared culture. And in our culture, hierarchy is playing a really strong role in our workplaces and even in the armed forces. We know some of our guests may have close family members who are collectively serving and protecting our freedom, and we feel for them. We have empathy. We do our utmost to be good hosts and to share our values and morals. But what is the right thing to do? Well, that depends. Let me turn the tables for a moment and let's look at your offering. Yes, the offering that I'm going to talk about is nothing but your roasted chicken. My topic specifically is the comparison between humans and chickens. And most of my research is coming from a website freefromharm.org. I add my childhood observations and my lengthy talk to backyard farmers. Humans and chickens share many characteristics. As you can see, these chickens are collectively ready to defend their patch. They are clever enough to look in all directions to fight off the enemy. Is that not what we as humans do? To have each other's backs? We all know the expression of pecking order. We do have that in our society as well. But for chickens, hierarchy is of the utmost importance to promote harmony in the flock. Did you know that a 5-day-old chicken or chick is just as clever as a rhesus monkey? I added a slice of the monkey so that you can remember this. Chickens are intelligent and cognitively sophisticated. Only days after the chickens are hatched, they do complex skills such as basic arithmetic, self-control, and even structural engineering. Chicks are born with a basic understanding of geometry, physics, and advanced problem-solving skills. They are quick learners and they have excellent retention. Just like humans, they vocalize. Chickens have over 30 distinct vocalizations, and they are using body language to convey information such as distress, danger, and discovery, especially about food and nesting. When a female accepts food from a male, she's storing this info, and based on this info, she will choose a mate sometime in the future, and that requires an excellent memory. They also have moods. I think you can see it. They are aware when flock mates are getting killed. Chickens display feelings comparable to humans, such as grief, fear, or happiness. And I'm wondering, those factory farm killings, are those chickens feeling that it's a little bit like Auschwitz? No, I'm not flippant, but they do feel the death of another. They can recognize over 100 faces, even months after separation. We have genetically altered hens to have large, big, plump breasts. Some hens are flaunting it, while others are so top-heavy that they can barely move, and you can see that little yellow one is not too happy. And there is a cleavage. Our roosters, of course, is pretty much like our males. They can be coiffed or they can be ruggedly handsome. And as far as food is concerned, I think a prawn and a grasshopper is not too different. And also, we eat green grass in our smoothies. Now, I know all of you are going to think, now we know the message. She's going to ask us to become a vegetarian. No, it's not. I would rather like you to buy cage hen or cage hens and give them a wonderful life. And you'll be so glad you did, because they will just add to your life experiences and they will add smiles to your face. Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you for that education on how educated and intelligent chickens are, Magda. I am happy that, although you were giving a humorous speech, that you weren't asking us why the chicken crossed the road. And you will be happy to know that I do purchase cage-free organic eggs. Now, after finding out so much more about chickens, I may want to be a vegetarian. Next up on our roster is Graham. He will be speaking to us out of the Competent Communication Manual on how to organize your speech. The title of his speech is Sapa, S-A-P-A, Sapa. The time reserved for this speech is 7 minutes. Graham, take it away.
Madam Toastmaster, ladies and gentlemen, and my timer has just stopped, and I hate that. If you can wait just a moment, I was afraid that was going to happen. I just want to get this right. So, let's try that again. Madam Toastmaster, ladies and gentlemen, our guide was quite astounded when I told him that every child had free schooling in Australia and every resident had free universal healthcare and free access to hospitals and doctors. We're in Sapa. It's a town in northern Vietnam near the Chinese border, and he was quite astonished that a decadent capitalist Western country like Australia should have those things, while only certain disadvantaged minorities in Vietnam did. Now, Vietnam's an interesting place to a visitor from a liberal democracy like Australia. It is, strictly speaking, a communist country, and yet many of the things that we've come to expect, like free schooling, they don't appear to be part of the Vietnamese mindset. According to Vietnam's constitution, schools are not allowed to charge fees until the secondary school level, but that hasn't stopped some grade schools from requiring students to pay for cleaners and traffic guards and gardeners and maintenance and pens and notebooks and more. So you can imagine that rather than schools being free, they're a major impost for impoverished parents. The same holds true for medical treatment in Vietnam. Government subsidies cover about 20% of healthcare. The remaining 80% come out of individuals' own pockets. When I explained how universal healthcare and free schooling worked here in Australia, our tour guide was, as I say, truly surprised. But why were we discussing such things? Well, he'd been pointing out that the ethnic minority people around Sapa got free schools and free hospitals, but ethnic Vietnamese did not. Now, he wasn't sounding bitter about it, but it was fairly obvious that there was a certain amount of, well, racial stereotyping going on in his comments. Before I go on, I need to tell you a little about Sapa itself, because it is important to this story. Sapa was established as a French outpost in 1922, and the town doesn't have a lot going for it except some magnificent views, apparently. The 2 days that we were there was this incredibly thick cloud bank enveloping us. It lifted about an hour before we left, and we could finally confirm that there was actually a mountain out there after all. A bit like the old Donovan song, first there is a mountain, then there is no mountain, then there is. These days, Sapa's main function is as a jumping off point for tourists who want to trek through the hill tribe villages below the town. There are 8 different ethnic minority groups found in Sapa: the Hmong, Dao, Tay, Chai, Mohong, Thai, Hoa and Shafo people who live in those villages, and each group lives separate from each other. We didn't see many of the Red Dao or Tay people, but it was clear that our guide, who was from the dominant Vietnamese ethnic group, the Kin, favoured those groups over the Hmong, pointing out the educational achievements and the industriousness of his favoured tribes, in contrast to the Hmong. The Hmong are an interesting people, I have to tell you. They come from China, and they came about 400 years ago, essentially subsistence farmers who also eke out a living around Sapa by latching onto the growing number of tourists and selling handicrafts. A group of Hmong women and girls followed us on a 5-kilometre trek through their village and 2 other ethnic minority villages nearby. They were always friendly. They were always solicitous, they were always helpful, but they also always had an eye on selling souvenirs at the end of the process. And when we did reach the end of our tour, they were remarkably persistent. Even if one of us bought a handicraft from one woman, they'd then begin haranguing us to buy another from another one of their sisters. As for the trek itself, well, after a moderate walk down a hill on a concrete path, the 3-village tour was essentially a relatively flat stroll across fields and around the valley below Sapa. We saw a Hmong home which has no windows and a constant fire. Apparently smoke is considered to be auspicious, as well as the homestay facilities which were run by those other ethnic groups we spoke about. The afternoon was largely views of locals tilling the paddies and livestock wandering around at random, and it was really interesting. But as part of our stay in Sapa, we made a second trek, and the second was interesting for the differences it showed us, along with the cultural exhibitions that we saw. At Cat Village, for example, there is a theatre where young Hmong demonstrators or young Hmong performers demonstrate their tribal dances and music, and you can see things like low-tech sluice skates and water-powered rice milling apparatus. But the highlights for me were the genuine interactions that we had. For example, at one point we're wandering along a path and we spotted an elderly woman who was crying bitterly. We, of course, had no idea what was wrong, had no Vietnamese, but eventually our guide was able to get from her that her daughter had moved to Hanoi with a man that we gathered the mum didn't much like, and she hadn't heard from them for a while and she was upset. which reminded us that no matter where you are in the world, no matter what your station in life, there are some domestic dynamics that just do not change. A word of warning too, by the way, if you're thinking of going to Sapa, and I would recommend it, and you decide to visit Cat Village, be aware it is a moderately challenging walk. There are about 2,000 rough-hewn steps down to the village. Two of our party, in fact, didn't come with us because of that steep descent and then the steep ascent again on the other side. Those with a dicky heart or a bad back or knees, you might be advised to avoid it. But as a fat, unfit, late 50s Aussie, well, I had no problems. And I was glad I did the walk because it's always interesting to see how others live, even if the experience is a bit touristy. In fact, I would suggest that it's those interactions with others that make travel such a joy, like our guide, who had spent his entire life under Vietnam's Doi Moi system. Another explanation here. Under the rule of Vietnamese Communist Party, North Vietnam had a command economy. That's where government sets targets and controls distribution of goods and services and all commercial activity. Well, when they won the Civil War and united the whole country, they tried to introduce that command economy across the whole nation of Vietnam. But that only lasted for about 10 years because the Doi Moi reforms had to be introduced. They created what's known as Vietnam's socialist-oriented market economy. That's a sort of mixed economy where the government directs the economic development and still owns a significant number of factories, but other means of production are owned by locals, owned in a capitalist sense. So it's not a socialist economy per se. It's meant to point Vietnam to a socialist economy once the country is ready for it. Anyway, our guide, as a young man in his early 20s, has never known any other system and couldn't imagine any other system. So it was something of a learning experience as we shared our totally different life experiences. Oh, and talking of learning experiences, while we were in Sapa, I sampled a local beer, the Lao Cai Lager, which I actually thought was the best beer that I had in our entire trip to Vietnam. But here's another lesson. Apparently there is no Lao Cai brewery. Instead, the beer is brewed in as many as a dozen different breweries just across the border in China. And what that means is that one carton might be ambrosia, like the one I had, but the next might be best described as swimming pool water that somebody has spilled a beer in. That's a description I found online. So you just have to be prepared to take whatever you get. Another story of Sapa, a town full of stories to share. Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you, Graham. That was wonderful. Wow, we are getting quite the education this evening. We don't need to enroll in school. We just need to enroll in a Toastmasters group because we learn all about culture and animals, chickens, and social media. Right now, I'm going to ask that all of our fellow Toastmasters and guests, I believe, will do guests vote. Will somebody, Roger or somebody, will you let me know if guests vote as well? Because I'm going to call for everybody to send their vote on over to Peggy, our vote counter.
Yes, indeed, guests do vote.
Great, thank you. So if all Toastmasters and guests will send your vote on over to Peggy, over in the chat monitor, make sure to send it privately. That would be wonderful. I see that Essel has prepared the timing, and it looks as though we have one person that may have gone over. Joy's speech was 6 minutes and 51 seconds. Magda's was 6 minutes and 57 seconds. Graham's was 7 minutes and 22 seconds, which is
still eligible.
Still
you
eligible.
get 30 seconds leeway.
Okay, perfect. Still eligible to be in the contest, so vote, vote, vote. As we move on, I will introduce the general evaluator for the evening, Toastmaster Lois.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster of the Day, but I am actually going to throw this over to our table topics master because we're going to do table topics first, and I believe that is Toastmaster Roger.
Thank you very much, Toastmaster Lois, as your table topic master. We're in this segment where we are in this education of training ourselves to respond spontaneously in terms of impromptu questions. Now, next week, we're going to have our contest. Now, why do we have contests in Toastmasters? Well, again, this is part of our education to train us, to get us to sharpen our speaking ability. So speaking and thinking about competition, what is the silliest competition you have participated in? What is the silliest competition have you participated or watched or encountered with Jacinta?
Thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master. Good evening, fellow Toastmasters and guests. The silliest competition that I have watched, I haven't been a part of any silly competitions. I try not to be. But the silliest competition I have seen was actually one episode on Fear Factor. I believe they were trying to find something delicious to eat. Now, if you have not seen Fear Factor before, they do a bunch of crazy stuff, crazy things on that show. This particular day, they decided that insects would be something that they would like to have as a delicious dinner. Yes, insects. In this particular episode, they actually purchased, or actually not purchased, but they actually ate grasshoppers. Now, in some cultures and areas, grasshoppers are okay to eat, and I don't have anything against a grasshopper. But personally, I felt it was a bit silly. There are a lot of other things they probably could have tried to eat since they were in a populated area. They could have tried a nice restaurant. They could have purchased some fast food. There's a lot of things they could have did besides eating a grasshopper. That is the silliest competition that I have seen. Back to you, Mr. Tabletopist Master.
Thank you, Madam Jacinta. I am not going to make any one of you eat any insects tonight, but if you would have been in a competition, an eating competition, let's just say it's pie. What kind of pie would you hate to be eating in this pie competition? Our guest, John Callaghan.
Mr. Table Topics Master. Interesting. I will tie these 2 points together. The pie that I would not want to eat is a grasshopper pie. Because I have just returned from a trip to Mexico. I was there for 6 weeks, and in the second location that we were at, it was a city called Mérida, and it's on the Yucatan Peninsula, and they have a history of eating grasshoppers and various different kinds of bugs. So as my wife and I were strolling down the street, there was a gentleman sitting there with this huge vat of live grasshoppers, which he was then taking and putting into a cooking device and turning it into grasshopper pulp, which then he turned into different pastes and different things that you could do with these grasshoppers. And at one point, one of the things he had created was some sort of a pastry made out of these grasshoppers. So the type of pie that I would hate to have to eat would be grasshopper pie. But if you could substitute that with maybe some an apple pie with some ice cream on it or something like that, I'm all in. But that grasshopper pie, not going to work for me, Mr. Table Topics Master.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I know exactly what to send you for Christmas. Now let's imagine. So put on your thinking cap. Imagine this. We are at the 2020 Toastmasters International Speech Contest, and we're all there attending. And the winner is Norman Dow. Norman, you have just won the 2020 International Speech Contest. And I came in second. We're in a room, just the two of us. What are you going to say to me, Norman Dow?
Thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master, for this interesting challenge. I will tell you something, Roger. I would really want to be nice. But since I know you and how you are, I couldn't help but say, Roger, eat your heart out! You've gotten what you deserved for all the times you put me on the spot. Now you see what it feels like to be on the spot yourself. It feels so good to be the winner. Maybe next time, Roger. But now, eat your heart out. Mr. Table Talking Master?
Thank you very much, Norman. Thank you. I will take that and I will work on it for another year and I will be back, Norman. Our very last question, very quickly. Let's move on and let's do a simpler one. You get a chance to begin a brand new competition event in the Olympics. What would it be? Nicole.
Good evening, everyone. So if I had the chance to start a brand new challenge in the Olympics, it would be gardening. Yes, I said gardening. Why? Gardening actually involves using all your muscle groups, but it also involves you planning strategically. And I would love to see that be a competitive sport. I'm sure it would be very hard, but I could imagine it right now. Everybody gets a little plot and they would have to sow seed and, show their techniques for having neat rows. Sorry about the ums, but also they could, the Olympics would supply some plants and greenery for them to practice with. I am clearly not athletic. Gardening is my thing, and that's why I have selected gardening to be the competition that I would add to my clearly Special Olympics. Thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master.
Thank you very much to all of our participants for being humorous and playing along. Madam Timer, would you tell us if everybody qualifies or not?
Norman did 54 seconds.
Ooh, Norman missed it by 6 seconds. I'm not going to say anything else, Norman. I'm just going to leave it at that. So cast your vote to our the three other speakers. Pick your best. So if you could go ahead. Oh, she just did put all of the exact time into the chat box. Privately, send your vote to Peggy, our vote counter. With that, let me hand the control over to our general evaluator, Madam Lois.
Thank you, Roger. Well, that was certainly fun. What is a speech without an evaluation? How do you get educated without someone telling you what they really liked or what they thought you could have done differently? The role of the evaluator is to help our speakers get stronger and gain confidence. Let's hear from these evaluators. To evaluate Joy, please welcome Toastmaster Christian.
Thank you, Madam General Evaluator. Ladies and gentlemen, do I need to be on social media? I think by listening to Joy, I definitely need to be on social media. Joy, thank you for sharing your message. You are not only participating in sharing your life stories, but you are also clear. I could hear and understand every single word from start to finish. You were engaging in your contents. You shared a number of stories as you went along, and then you also shared what was it for you as you moved from the question, which social media do I go for, to getting onto LinkedIn, and then how it is for you at the moment. It's a global community where you can share and learn with and from others. Thank you for those aspects of learning from social media. I was taking notes as you were speaking. Now, Joy, I was so entertained by your speech that I want to share not one, not two, but 3 gifts to you, my dear. Number 1, as you're doing your delivery, I saw that the hands were there, they were coming up, they were being used, but I saw only part of it like this. And then as you were speaking, I'm feeling that you're looking at the different screens. But for me, it's like you making the eye contact get away, because it's like this. So my first gift to you, Joy, is to look at that little white or red dot on your laptop and tilt your laptop screen so that I can see the whole upper body, and so I can see you make the full effective use of your hand gestures. That would have really hit the nail on the head for me with your message. As you're going along, Joy, I heard very interesting stories. And at times, the stories needed for me that thing we call the pace and the tone. I'm listening to the moments where you're telling me about your children, you're telling me about finding a partner, and then I'm hearing about the dating site, and I'm wondering, why am I not listening to that emotion? My children, I went to a dating site, and then there could have been that change in pace. Do you know what happened when I went to a dating site? Nothing, because I was still figuring out on which dating site to go on. That combination of tone and pace would have done wonders for me. But you did not leave me hungry. You were very passionate with your message. And here's my third gift for you. You have that passion in the message. Always think about my giveaway. Les Brown tells us never tell a story without making a point. You didn't have not one, not two. You had at least 7 stories, Joy. What was the point of the story? Yes, being present on social media, but that message could have been clear from start to finish. In summary, very good use of your words. Work on the pace and tone. Work on the what's in it for me. But what I really love on top, Joy, is the sharing and being vulnerable about your life journey. Looking forward to your next speech. Over to you, Madam General Evaluator.
Thank you very much. I was so caught up in Christian's evaluation, I was taking my own notes. Great job, Christian. Thank you. To evaluate Magda, please welcome Toastmaster David Carr.
Thank you, Madam General Evaluator, fellow Toastmasters, and especially Magda. Magda had an interesting challenge tonight. She's giving a researching your topic speech, but she's trying to inject a humorous angle into it, because this was the humorous speech. It was the humorous track that she's working on, or the humorous path, rather, in the Pathways program. I'm sorry. And I'm fitzing with the technology, which actually was something I was going to talk to Magda about, was because you presented actually with using slides, using the images on your slides to convey a lot of your message and to convey some of the humor. And because it's a humorous speech, I wondered really whether you shouldn't actually have had yourself, your face, on the screen more of the times. And it's not your fault that the technology works the way it does, but part of the reason we're here is to learn how to use the technology, use the medium effectively. And one of the things that I discovered was I lost track of your video feed. I had to go hunting around for it because the slides took over the screen. And so I didn't see you for a little while. And then when I did, you actually did have some good features. There was something about the fully formed ideas that you conveyed that I thought was good. So anyways, perhaps a little bit too much leaning on the slides. Maybe you should have shown a few slides and then exited the screen share and just talked with us. It's an idea, something that we can work on, and that does make things more complicated too if you're trying to go back and forth between these different modes. You had the idea of setting up the speech to work backwards to your point. So you didn't initially tell us what it was that you're going to be telling us, what the point was. We had to stick with you for a while until you got to the point of talking about not necessarily give up eating meat, give up eating chicken, be a vegetarian, but the idea of humane treatment of these farm animals. You had some facts that you worked in that were very interesting. This stuff about the chicks having basic understanding of geometry, physics, and advanced problem-solving skills. And of course, I'm wondering, how do you know that? How do they know that? How do whatever scientists who claim to know that? So you might actually have given us a little bit more of a hint, even though ultimately the point of the speech was to be humorous, of where you got this information. You did mention freefromharm.org, which I looked up briefly. It looks like a good site on the topic. But ultimately you came down with a humorous speech and a payoff in the end that talked about giving these chicks a wonderful life. Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you, David. Great evaluation. I enjoyed your problems with technology, whether they were real or imagined, because it just amplified it. Our third evaluator, please welcome Toastmaster Jim Barber to evaluate Graham.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster, Madam General Evaluator, rather. My fellow Toastmasters are most welcome guests, and especially Toastmaster Graham Cairns. Graham, this was Competent Communicator project number 2, Organize Your Speech. Since you've been through this a few times, your ability to organize your speech is without question. I'm not going to go anywhere with that one. You know how to organize a speech. You know the opening, body, close, etc., so on like that. So instead, I'm going to focus on storytelling. You are a magnificent storyteller. And the story that you told us tonight was not only entertaining, but also educational. And I appreciate that because it gave me an opportunity to use the word of the day. Specifically, several things that I really liked. You gave a great comparison in describing the beers that were available there. I am a big fan of beers. I like descriptions, but instead of limiting it to simply say it was good, it was not good, you actually broke it down into describing it to ambrosia, as I recall, or diluted swimming water. And that was just very good, especially important in a story. Also, in storytelling, your word choice is so important, and you have a gift for alliteration. You referred to, oh, I liked this one, some domestic dynamics do not change. Wonderful phrase. I love that. And I'm offering this without comment, fat, unfit, late 40s Aussie. I'm not going to say how the accuracy on that was, but I love the alliteration. I have a couple of suggestions for you. This was an unfamiliar topic. If you were giving a Grimm's fairy tale that everybody was familiar with, that would be different. But people aren't familiar with Sapa, and so since this was an unfamiliar topic, you might want to slow down just a little bit, have a little bit more pausing so that we can get a chance to digest what you're saying. The other thing, and this is strictly video, and it's similar to what Christian indicated to Joy, you looked down at your notes quite a bit, and I realized that if you don't have it memorized, it's difficult, but if you could memorize the topic, and if you can't, then put your notes off to the side so that you're glancing off like I am now, looking over to the notes to the side without looking down. Most of the time you're looking at the camera. Check with Nick. He has got a great poor man's teleprompter worked out, and he'll describe you exactly. He'll describe you how to do it. It's a great thing to try. It's something that I'm working on as well. But this was an excellent storyteller. Always enjoy listening to you, and I'm looking forward to your next one. Madam General Evaluator.
Thank you, Jim. I have to say, Jim, you have a way of delicately tiptoeing around special phrases that you don't want to call attention to. But of course you call the attention to. Great educational moment for me. Let's hear from our ancillary roles. Madam Timer, if you could, there she is. She is so good at this. Quick as a bug. There we go. So all of our Evaluators are in time. Please vote for Christian, David, or Jim and send your votes to Peggy. Janice, as our grammarian, can you please tell us how we did? What did you like? What could we change?
Sure. Yeah, everything was great. Obviously, very gifted, very talented people. So I made my job a little bit difficult. So I'll look off to the side a little bit to my notes. So for Joy, a great speech on her profiles. I only caught two things. She dropped an article once when she said became expert rather than became an expert. And a little bit on the pronunciation of the word contributing might have been just a little different, but excellent. Magda did a very good job. I really have to also say she did very good on her vocal variety, and I would have loved to seen her face more myself. Graham did a great job, no errors. Roger didn't see anything. Jacinta, I found one thing for you. There was a point where you said could have, did, and that was, the did wasn't necessary. You might have also said might have, would be one suggestion. For Christian, there was a phrase I might suggest that you would flip. You said needed it for me. I would say for me needed, maybe put that the other way around. Okay. And as far as the last thing, I still have to say for Norman, though his time wasn't there, creative use of language was eat your heart out. And that was.
Thank you very much, Janice. Let's give her a round of applause. And Monica, let's try and keep our reports to 1 minute as we are running short on time. If you would, please. Our chat monitor, Monica.
Thank you, Madam General Evaluator. During the start of the meeting, David had given us some different links. One was renewal and one was to go online and see if you wanted to join. So I'll resend those in the link when I finish the review. We had several back and forth conversations, especially when Norman won, which was astounding. And then we had some gardening conversations going on. So, and of course, everybody it was very good and entertaining for all the speeches. So, Madam General Evaluator, back to you.
Thank you, Monica. Elaine, our watcher, 1 minute or less, please.
Okay, I really enjoyed being watcher this evening. There were 7 Toastmasters who used the background feature of Zoom, and this is a wonderful way to enhance the visual experience for all of us. I especially like that David had the different rainbow colored eyeballs up, and I wish I'd have that one right in back of me today. I also wanted to acknowledge Graham. He did have a background picture, and I was really curious during his speech. Was that Vietnam or in summer? It wasn't clear to me, and I would have loved to have had a reference to the picture so it added really emotional impact to your talk. I want to compliment John on his table topic talk about grasshoppers. The black background he had and his perfect lighting made us keep good attention on him, but I really wanted him looking in that camera so that I could even catch more of the emotion of this grasshopper story. Back to you, Madam Toastmaster and Evaluator.
Thank you. Our all-counter, Toastmaster John.
Madam General Evaluator, and was the word of the day, both for our prepared speeches as well as pretty much everyone else. But it was used in 2 different ways. Most commonly, we hear and used as a sentence starter. But one thing I saw Joy used a few times was and properly in a sentence, but almost as a pause that separated the sentence a little bit awkwardly, such as, I had a job and 2 kids. And at that point, it becomes a bit of a distraction. So maybe compress together or break into 2 faster sentences with a true pause. The other thing that was very interesting tonight was the use of now. A lot of people said now, at least 5, and sometimes with multiple uses. but nobody was saying right now. People were going now, 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 as a somewhat ineffective transition. Perhaps there's a better way to use the word now when we really mean now, or maybe we should try something else. Madam General Evaluator.
Thank you, John. At this moment, instead of now, I'd like to give my quick evaluation, as I know we are running short on time. We did start on time. Congratulations, Roger, for moving us along. Tracy, I believe this is your first Toastmaster of the Day of an online club. Just a couple of things. For some of the ancillary roles, that might be the only time they get a chance to talk, and you like them to introduce themselves, though you want them to keep their speech very short. So it might be nice to actually say, John, could you explain the all counter? It would also be nice for our guests if they understood that there were 3 parts to the meeting: our formal speeches, our table topics, and of course, our evaluations. We had a phenomenal educational moment in each one of the speeches. And of course, Roger, what fun with our table topics. Norman, congratulations. I think somebody said they were very surprised, but I'm sure we all knew you had it in you. Congratulations again. Lastly, just be aware that table topics are supposed to be over at 8:35, and we started our last table topic at 8:35, which meant we were already over time by the time evaluation started. But other than that, this is a tight run ship. I'm really proud of this club. And Tracy, I think you did a fabulous job for the first time of being Toastmaster of the Day, and I can't wait to see you doing it again. Take it away, Tracy. Can't hear you.
Oh my goodness, it may be a while before I opt for this position. No, thank you for that evaluation. I think what's important also to talk about are the forms that we work off of, because unless we have the right form that's guiding us, we may not be delivering the right information. And I feel that I don't have the right form that I'm working off of. So I apologize to everybody. And next time it is going to be a much better Toastmaster of the Day. Right now we are going to, I believe, hand the floor back over to our president, Roger.
Perhaps you want to ask for the winners of the day?
Okay, or we can just do that and ask for the winners of the day. So can I please hear from the vote counter, Peggy, who the winners were?
Yes, and for my role, I counted the votes from all the fellow Toastmasters and guests of the meeting. And for the best speech, it was Magda. For the best table topics, it was John. And for the best evaluator, Christian. Thank you. Back to you, Madam General Evaluator.
Thank you so much, Peggy. Anything else that I need to announce right now before handing it over to Roger? I think we are clear to hand it over. Thank you very much, everyone, and thank you to our guests for joining.
Thank you, Tracy, for a wonderful meeting. Yes, it was my fault who dragged us over time. I'm the one that was in error. Let's take this time very quickly and say hello to Rainey, one of our visitors. If you can unmute yourself, what did you think?
Hello, Roger, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Rainey?
Sorry, I can't open my camera right now. I think this is a really wonderful meeting, and I'm sorry that I missed the first part of it. I missed perhaps 2 speakers' speech. So perhaps next time I'll have to get up earlier. And I love this meeting. I think everybody's evaluation or suggestions are really constructive and useful. Yeah, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. Back to you.
Excellent. Thank you, Rainey. Tiger, what is 1 or 2 things that really stood out for you, good, bad, or ugly, about our meeting, Tiger?
There I am. Am I alive? Can you see me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I really appreciate the evaluations. Evaluations are very thorough. Specific. I like the fact that there are specific things given to the speakers, not just general things that they can deal with. And without being too flattering to you, your table topic was excellent. I really appreciate your creativity.
Well, thank you, Tiger. I will continue with our welcome to all of our visitors. I'm going to pause for a moment and repeat my announcement very quickly before we run out of time. Next week, speech contest. Please come, enjoy yourself. We do have one more spot in for contestants. Go ahead and go online and do that. Second thing, we do have a couple of speechathons coming up. They're already listed on our website. You can jump on. If you have a longer speech than the 5 to 7 minutes, those are the excellent time to do your longer speeches. Number 3, renew before March 31st. And what kind of topics would you like to learn more about? Maybe we'll get Nick to talk about that poor man's version of the tile pumper. With that, we are at 7:59. I will officially end our meeting and would like to, any one of you need to go, you can go, and the rest of you, please stick around and we can get to know the rest of our visitors and guests too. With that said, let's jump over to, well, I'm sorry, the screen just keeps jumping. Hadassah, did I butcher your name? Is that all right? If you can unmute yourself.
You got it.
All right.
Hi, everyone. My name's Hadassah. I live in Binghamton, New York. And I'm actually the Division D Director for Toastmasters District 65. I am trying to get towards my DTM and am looking for an online club to help me get in the required speeches and to make new connections. One of the things I really appreciated about today's meeting was your obvious affection for each other. I wasn't sure what the human interaction would be like in an online club, particularly when I came in and saw there was 25 people in the meeting. It seemed like, oh, how is this gonna work? How is this gonna feel? But I really felt the connection between you all and your smiling faces, your humor, you definitely know each other. And so that was a very big positive for me.
Great. We'll love to have you here. We'd love to have you to continue to visit us a few more times. And if this is the right place, Lois will come calling and getting to know you a little bit, because she is our VP of membership.
I will definitely do that. Roger, could you please stop the recording since the meeting officially ended?
David, please